With the release of the Quarry, we thought it'd be a good chance to look at the history of Supermassive Games, who are, at this point, an absolute staple of PlayStation games, despite not technically being a PlayStation exclusive developer. Supermassive have had a huge boom in popularity in the last few years thanks to the success of their branching narrative games, starting with Until Dawn in 2015. There's more to look at from their library too, so let's have a look and rate every Supermassive game until now. We're not listing them here in release order, oh no, we're ranking these bad boys from worst all the way to the best of the best. So let's start the party with Start the Party. The PlayStation Move. Great for light gun games, letting the PS3 stand up against the Wii in its heyday. But for other types of games? Anyway. Start the Party was a party game. No prizes for guessing that. Where you take part in a bunch of mini-games until one person got a certain number of points, at which point they'd win. This game wasn't super popular, and for most people, they agree that it also wasn't very good. It was followed by our next entry, Start the Party, Save the World. So, imagine Start the Party, but themed to superheroes. That's the game. Moving on, Doctor Who, The Eternity Clock. Released during Matt Smith's run as the titular Time Lord, The Eternity Clock was a 2D puzzle platformer where you switch between the perspectives of Matt Smith's Doctor and recurring character River Song to solve a mystery and stop a villain before the universe is totally destroyed. Regular Doctor Who stakes. Sometimes it's okay. To be honest, this is a pretty weak one. Even hardcore Whovians would have trouble getting along with this one, with weak controls, uninspired puzzles, and assets seemingly reused from the Doctor Who adventure games. This had little to offer to players, but wasn't entirely without merit. Wonderbook, Walking with Dinosaurs. I used to love the Walking with Dinosaurs series, and the Wonderbook. The Wonderbook. I am a sucker for strange peripheral ideas. The Wonderbook allowed users to use the low-quality PS3 camera to bring a book covered in QR codes to life, quote-unquote, on the screen. This game is worth a decent couple hours fun, but this wasn't exactly one to write home about. However, chin up, because this is where the list finally shifts from don't try it to games that are actually fun and worth playing if you feel like it. A category that's got way too long a title. I'd change it if I could, but I didn't make it. Tumble. Another PS Move game. Designed to showcase the accuracy of the PS Move controller, the 70 challenges that made up this game might have been some of the most actual game of any of the Supermassive games made for the PS Move. This game is surprisingly fleshed out with solo, co-op, and PvP modes, and it even played on 3D TVs. If you want a cool tech demo that will take up a long afternoon, I highly recommend this. And it was succeeded by Tumble Vr. Rebuilt from the ground up for PSVR, this takes what was already good in Tumble and makes it one of the strongest launch titles for the console-based headset. This is one of the only games to make use of the PSVR's social screen feature, and it uses it for an entirely new mode on top of what was already in the game, the Inpatient. Another VR title, and not the last. This is the first Until Dawn spin-off on the list. Considering that this was pretty early into the PSVR lifecycle, and was one of the first real horror exploration projects in VR at all, this does a pretty decent job, but there isn't much game to it. Most of your time in the game is spent walking around, watching scripted sequences play out once you trigger them, and then walking to another scripted sequence, maybe picking something up along the way. But if you want a cool, simple narrative experience, then this could be one for you. The Dark Pictures Anthology, Man of Medan. Oh man. This one is something. Sure, this game isn't good. In fact, it's pretty bad. However, it's got one saving grace. All of the Dark Pictures games allow you to assign specific players to specific characters, and playing the game with friends is so much fun. There's nothing better than failing the odd QuickTime event or meeting one of the often arbitrary instant deaths scattered throughout the game, trying to contend with plot holes, and doing it all together. The Dark Pictures Anthology, House of Ashes. Look, this is considerably buggier and noticeably more rushed than either of the previous two Dark Pictures games. However, as it goes on, it has some of the most difficult choices, active gameplay, and interesting stories in the entire Dark Pictures Anthology. Overall, this is almost the best of the three that are out right now. Again, this one is definitely better to play with a group of friends, if you play it at all. Shattered State. Does anyone remember the Google Daydream? I sure do, and I'm pretty sure I'm one of the only ones. This cinematic thriller was one of the most polished titles on the whole ill-begotten system. It really felt like a cinematic VR experience on a mobile VR platform. In this game, you play as the director of the National Intelligence Agency, and you have to take control of a rapidly escalating situation before things go too far. With a branching narrative based on decisions you make, this wasn't a groundbreaking game by most standards. However, for the Google Daydream, or any mobile headset really, this was a real benchmark that arguably never got met again. Bravo team. If you can't tell by now, Supermassive are all about co-op, and they took what they learned with Until Dawn Rush of Blood and put it into this, a co-op shooter for PSVR that is, honestly, kinda great. It's one of the best first parties on PSVR, which is actually a list Supermassive has a surprisingly strong hand in. It's not something you're gonna remember or talk about for years to come, but it's definitely worth the price. Hidden Agenda. Back to talking about gimmicks, Hidden Agenda was one of the first and only PlayLink games. This feature, based around multiple players connecting to the game using their phones, was semi-interesting but ultimately destined to fail. In this game, which played similarly to Until Dawn, players vote for specific decisions on their phones, and if playing in competitive mode, one player will receive a secret objective, a hidden agenda if you will, which intended to create conflict between the players. This detective mystery was honestly really fun, and a lot more polished than a lot of the Dark Pictures Anthology that followed it. It's just a shame that it's linked to the PlayLink system, which I wouldn't be surprised if that went down the drain and completely stopped functioning any day now. The Dark Pictures Anthology, Little Hope. Fun fact about this game, according to rumors, the story of this game is an adapted version of one that Supermassive originally pitched to Konami as a new Silent Hill game. That DNA is still baked into this game. And ironically, Silent Hill is a franchise that has little hope for a new entry. So this, and Bloober's The Medium, may be the best we ever get. This is easily the best story, best structure, and most engaging script and performances, as well as the least buggy that the whole Dark Pictures Anthology has to offer. And it's well worth a go, with a free trial available on PlayStation right now. Until Dawn, Rush of Blood. One of the first PSVR titles, and they started with a bang. This game takes the 90s style horror of Until Dawn and makes it into an arcadey, carnival-style funhouse shooter ride. Not only is this genuinely really fun with some great set pieces, but it manages to constantly keep a surprisingly serious tone and creates a great metaphor-based side story to the original game. This is one you won't just want to try, but try again and again to get the highest score. Until Dawn. Let's be honest, it was always going to end this way. Until Dawn currently sits at 79% on Metacritic, the highest score of any Supermassive game. It was originally started way back at the end of the PS3's life cycle for the PS Move. and quite honestly, thank goodness, it was released when it did, because almost all of the marketing was done by Let's Play YouTubers, whose exaggerated reactions to certain scenes made it seem like something really special. This game was praised for its homage to cheesy and bad 80s and 90s horror, but after the release of the first few entries in the Dark Pictures Anthology, people have started to wonder if it really was intentional homage. Nevertheless, this game is a whole lot of fun, especially with friends, and it was hugely impactful. And that brings us to now, The Quarry, the latest narrative horror game from Supermassive Games. You won't believe what you'll become in this title, where you play as teen counselors of Hackett Quarry, who have the camp to themselves for one final night. In this thrilling cinematic tale, you control the fates of 9 camp counselors as their party plans unravel in an unpredictable night of horror. With life or death decisions around every turn, the choices you make will determine how the story unfolds. But that's not all. We also know that the next entry in the Dark Pictures Anthology is coming soon, named The Devil in Me. We can only hope that these games can match or even supersede what has come before, and I think we can all agree to wishing Supermassive Games the best in their future. Supermassive Games have undoubtedly had a colourful history, especially for PlayStation, where their loyalties have stayed since the beginning, despite staying independent for their entire time developing games. We'll be keeping a close eye on their future games to see what this always interesting studio does next. If you want more content like this, be sure to subscribe, and please read the full fleshed out article on indiegamefans.com, and be sure to stay there for all of the latest indie game news, reviews, and lists.